Today's mini video clip will focus on Bacon's Rebellion. Bacon's Rebellion happened in 1676. The focus of this mini video is to talk about some of the causes of Bacon's Rebellion, a little bit about the rebellion itself, and then some of the consequences. So I want to start by setting the context. Many new migrants were coming over from Europe. Coming over in droves at this point. Every decade, we're going to see more and more Europeans coming over to the colonies. Part of that is opportunity. Having land available here, so that desire for land. Of course, Europeans have it, and there just isn't the land readily available in Europe. So the opportunities presented here, as well as some of the turmoil experienced in Europe, we're seeing more and more people coming over to the colonies. So again, that's going to be part of the context for Bacon's Rebellion. We also have to know King Philip's War. So as more and more colonists were coming over from Europe, they're continuing to migrate further and further west, and that's causing a lot of conflict with Native Americans. So King Philip's War is a reaction to the increasing number of colonists coming over. Tension and conflict is the result, and we see a huge uprising in King Philip's War. Now, this is going to be important to understand that even though this war is going to be further up north by the New England colonies, it's going to have an impact even further south. Colonial governors and governments, they know about this. Native Americans are real. There's a real fear here moving forward. So that's definitely part of the context here with Bacon's Rebellion. And then, of course, we have land becoming scarce. Even though there's an abundance of land, well, Native Americans are on most of it. And colonists are pushing the boundaries further and further west, and we're seeing increasing conflict. So land is becoming scarce. So important things to keep in mind as we talk about Bacon's Rebellion. So a little bit about Nathaniel Bacon himself. He's an aristocrat. He migrated to Jamestown in 1642, and by that time, a lot of the land, completely around Jamestown is going to be carved up already. So when he comes later, he's forced to take some more of the less desired land further west. Of course, the further west you go, the more likely it is that you're going to experience or see issues with Native Americans. And certainly Bacon's going to have that. So he's going to be privy to a lot of the issues and struggles that these backcountry settlers experience. Now, again, that's going to be relevant to really understand Bacon's Rebellion. He understands that. He sees that. He's also dismayed at the conditions, at the lack of protection that the government of Jamestown is providing for a lot of these backcountry settlers. So land is scarce. He's forced to settle in the backcountry. Make sure that we have a good understanding of that. So we're going to start talking about rising tension. As I mentioned in the previous slide, settlers moved west into native lands, causing issues and conflict. And remember the context here. King Philip's War is it's known, it's understood, and it's easy to understand that colonial governments, they want to avoid excessive entanglements with Native American warfare and fighting. That's going to cost lives, it's going to cost money, so they would like to see that reduced. But the settlers in the backcountry, more migrants coming over, they want that land. So in this particular case, a lot of these backcountry settlers in the Jamestown region, they're still paying taxes to the Jamestown government. So they're paying taxes to Jamestown, and in their mind, in their perception, they're getting very little back for all those taxes paid. So between that and then Bacon, witnessing a lot of the issues on the backcountry, they felt very strongly that the government should intervene. The government should launch an attack. They should remove some of the hostile Indians towards the west, so that would relieve some of the pressure on land, and we could see backcountry settlers continue to march west. So he felt pretty strongly about that. Governor Berkeley of Jamestown and the Jamestown colonial government, they're not going to launch that type of attack, much to the dismay of Bacon and the other backcountry settlers who felt entitled. Remember, they're Englishmen. He's an aristocrat, so he's used to getting his own way. He has those entitlements, and he's really upset that the government is not going to provide this support. Now, looking at it from the government's perspective, wars cost money, wars cost lives, and they would much rather negotiate with Indians, use some type of peaceful tactic. So to launch an all-out war and invasion just wouldn't be something they would especially want to see happen at this time. Um, so what happens as a result of this rising tension? Well, Bacon's going to raise a militia to attack Native American villages. He's going to take it upon himself. Um, and that's important to understand here. We have him and many other people in this Jamestown region who are going to rise up, kind of going against what their colonial government is saying, and they're going to attack Native American villages. This is going to force Governor Berkeley to respond. He's going to send soldiers to meet Bacon and to try and stop him for his leadership and for all the other reasons mentioned before. Berkeley's going to feel it's very necessary to stop Bacon from continuing these attacks on Indians. So there is a confrontation between the Jamestown militia and Bacon's militia. I want you to kind of see this in some level as some class conflict here. We see the Tidewater gentry. We see the people who are coming to Jamestown first. Well, they have entitlements and they have privileges that those backcountry settlers don't. So we see a little bit of class conflict here, the Tidewater gentry versus the backcountry settlers. A lot of people do support Bacon. They see it from his perspective. Remember the English tradition of seeing vacant land, which Native Americans are obviously using the land, but not in a similar way to what we would see Europeans or how we would see Europeans use that land. So they feel entitled to it. So a lot of people will support Bacon, and Bacon will win this rebellion. They're going to basically remove Governor Berkeley. He's going to be forced to flee back to England. It will fizzle out shortly after this. Once Bacon takes over, he dies of dysentery. I want to say within a year. I'm not exactly sure about how soon after he dies, but he will die pretty soon after. So what is the impact of Bacon's rebellion? What's the so what here? Why is this important to understand in terms of U.S. history? Here's a few of the reasons why. So the impact of Bacon's rebellion. As I mentioned before, it reveals class conflict, the wealthy versus the poor. At some level, we see that happening as a result of this rebellion. We also see recent settlers versus established settlers. So we know later in our history, immigrants, when they come over to this country, they're going to have some difficult land. They're going to be, butted up against Native Americans as they continue to push west. Well, we kind of see that here. So recent settlers versus the established settlers who have that land further east. People are going to be dismayed over taxation. Again, something that maybe we should think more about in terms of Bacon's rebellion. That the people are taxed. They're not happy with how their tax dollars are being utilized and how it's not really being utilized to support their endeavors with protection and claiming land further west. So at some level here again, we have people who are upset about taxation. The fourth bullet point is going to be important: lack of social mobility. Remember, people are coming over here from Europe to have a better life, to have more opportunities, to gain land. And these are people who are coming over, and these are risk takers. I think that's important to understand. They're willing to take that risk. I mean, they made the journey over here early on. So maybe it shouldn't surprise us that they would be willing to rise up and stand up for their real or perceived rights. So lack of social mobility for some of those backcountry settlers. I think we see evidence of that in Bacon's rebellion. Native American lands, obviously a major theme that we will continue to see in U.S. history. As I mentioned before, the land is there. The English will feel it's their right to spread over that land and to work the land in their way. So they will feel entitled to that land, and that's going to be obviously important to Native Americans, and we'll continue to see conflict over that land. Democratic feelings as well. Again, with the people rising up, they feel they have a right. They're going to take it upon themselves to stand up for their rights and make sure that their voice is heard and felt. 100 years later, 1776, we know that history. If we look 100 years before at Bacon's Rebellion, we start to see, we definitely see some evidence of that happening. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to share about 10 minutes of Bacon's Rebellion. Hopefully this had a positive impact on your understanding of this rebellion. And that concludes this short video.